Hello there, my name's Tony Sullivan and I'm an author of a number of books, some of which are about King Arthur. I've been asked by Nathan to provide a short video about the subject of King Arthur for his King Arthur Day on X. So this particular video, I'm just going to talk about one very specific topic, and that is the date. So whilst historians are probably quite rightly sceptical, because there's no contemporary evidence and no archaeological evidence to support the existence of an historical Arthur, there are some historians who think on the balance of probability there could be an historical Arthur, but there's nothing we can say about him. This hasn't prevented a huge number of theories popping up and hundreds of books on the subject. However, if we're going to talk about an historical Arthur, if we accept he was an historical figure, then we can say something hopefully quite interesting about the date, because there is some consensus across the sources, although we can't trust the sources. It's interesting that they all do seem to agree, and there's very little to point to any other date. So if I just go through them, the first appearance of Arthur is in the Historia Brittonum, about 300 years after he's supposed to have lived. It was written around about 828. And that, whilst it doesn't give a date, it does suggest he was born around about the late 5th and early 6th century. It says that after the death of St. Patrick and the death of Hengist, the English increased their numbers, and then Arthur fought against them. So Hengist, his death is dated in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles as 488. Can't trust that date, but that's what it says. St. Patrick's death is recorded in various different sources as either the 460s or 493. So if we take the later one, because it's believed that he's been conflated with Palladius in the earlier one, then it would seem that the Historia Brittonum is saying that Arthur fought his battles after round about 490. And then it gives a terminus date, which is before the reign of Ida of Bernicia, who's dated to 547. So the Historia Brittonum dates Arthur very in a range of 490 to say 550. Now the Welsh Annals, interestingly, 100 years after the Historia Brittonum, that dates him quite precisely to fighting the Battle of Badon in 516 and Camlan in 537. So there again, we have an Arthur in the first half of the 6th century. Geoffrey of Monmouth, he dates him, the only date he does give in his work, dates Arthur's death as 542, so he may well have taken that from the Welsh Annals. And then the only other places that hint at a date is the saints' lives, and he's associated with a number of different saints. Can't trust their hagiographies because they use Arthur as a reason why they have certain land rights. So they're writing in the 12th century, 600 years after Arthur supposedly lived, and they're saying this land belongs to us because Arthur granted it to our 6th century saint 600 years ago. So you can take that with a pinch of salt, but it does show they must have believed or expected people to believe he was a historical figure. Of course, that doesn't mean he was. But it's interesting that he's only associated with saints from the late 5th to early 6th century. It's not associated with any other saints. And you sort of do get the impression when you're reading some of the histories that the 5th and 6th century was awash with saints, especially Welsh saints. And you couldn't walk around a corner without bumping into half a dozen of them. He was knee deep in saints, and yet Arthur is only ever associated with a small number that are all located in South Wales, all the West Country, and all dated to the late 5th to the mid 6th century. So that's interesting because it all falls in line with what the other sources say. And then lastly is the genealogies, and the genealogies all written after Geoffrey of Monmouth, so again can't trust them. However, again there is a consensus. None of them place him as a king in any of the petty kingdoms, but they do have him linked to various royal families, and he is placed as a great grandson of Cyneffa, who was a king in North Wales, and he's the same generation as Melgwyn of Gwynedd, and he seems to be the same generation as Gildas. So again, he's all the people he's associated with are all late 5th to early 6th century. So all the sources place him somewhere between 480 and 540. So if we take a fighting age man, perhaps reaches fighting age at the age of 18, and the sources suggest there's like a 21-year gap between Baden and Camlan. So if he lives until he's 40, for example, then we're talking about a 40-year period somewhere between 480 and 540. So that's what the sources say. Of course, we take it all with a pinch of salt. None of the sources point to any other time period, but if we accept that, obviously there are lots of other questions that we can't answer. But at least when it comes to date, we can say that there is a consensus. If there is an historical Arthur, which we can't say for certain, but if there is an historical Arthur, all the sources do seem to point to somewhere between 480 and 540. Okay, right, that's the end of my little short talk. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the rest of the posts.